Hello, so I just wanted to respond to a question I received, which was, why would we want to remove contracts with our mother or with our father? And I think it's important to outline what energetic contracts actually are. And this question was left on one of my other videos where we did a sort of clearing around this. And contracts are, they can be beneficial for us. They can be higher level soul contracts of things that we can't even really touch on this plane of existence, things that we have been pre-contracted into, things which we have agreed to do, things which are sort of mission level pieces, we might call them, that are taking place on a much higher level than we have access to right now. And so those often include things like, I've agreed to clear up my family line. You can't really get out of doing that. If you try and get out of doing that, you're not going to feel fulfilled in your life. That's if it's something you have agreed to on a soul level like that, then it's something that you are going to be constantly magnetized towards. And so that would be sort of soul level, mission level contracts. But then you also have contracts which can be playing out over many different lifetimes, or contracts which we have almost subconsciously or consciously agreed to in this lifetime as well. And so one thing I see quite a lot with people is you might have a contract with someone else to, you never get further than each other. You're always kind of doing this ping pong thing where it's like one person gets a few steps ahead and then the other person kind of catches up, and then it's like this sort of, it's almost like you keep pulling each other back or not allowing one another to get further ahead. Things like that are really, really common that we've seen from playing out. Often see them playing out over multiple different lifetimes. And so there's things like that. There's things like, I'm not going to listen to you, I can't hear you. I've seen I cannot tell you how many times I've seen that contract in people's fields where it's like there's just this constant communication barrier between you and another person, and then we look back in the records and we see that there's been an agreement where you're just not going to hear each other, and that most likely has been made on a subconscious level. But our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, our words, all of these things are imprints, and unless we're clearing them and working through them, they can create real, what almost feel like these energetic structures which keep us playing out these same patterns over and over again. And so when it comes to our parents, they are the people who have agreed on some level to bring us into this world. And when we are looking at the language of energy, it is archetypal for the most part. It is a language of archetypes. Look at myths, look at legends. All of these are patterns of energy which are played out and which we all on some level carry out. And so, for example, with our mothers, there are particular patterns that we see between the way that parent-child relationships tend to go. These are not always by the book, but there's often certain expectations that we place on our mothers, or certain expectations that are placed on us as children. These are all energetic contracts on some level. Some have more power than others, and some have more weight than others. So when we come into this world and we have assigned our mother the role of being our mother, that comes with certain expectations. And so, and ideally what would happen is, as we mature, we start to see our mother as a human being, as somebody who has their own shit going on, and we don't expect the same things that maybe we would have expected when we were really young children, i.e. to be fed, to be clothed, to be watered, etc. So when we get older, it can be helpful for us to go, okay, I'm not assigning you that archetype anymore. You're just a human, just like me. We're both just trying to work this thing out. So when we release our mother from that particular contract of being our mother, energetically, archetypally, we create all of this space to experience her as a being in her own right. And a lot of people aren't even in contact with their mothers. I would still suggest do this, because you're creating space within your field to bring forward that your own sacred mother archetype within you and connect with that cosmic energy. And that is one of the main energies which sustains us, which fuels us, which keeps us moving and knowing where we're meant to be in this life and knowing what we've programmed in for this life. And if we have all of this stuff around our own mother, it's really hard for us to tune into that higher wave frequency of what it is we're actually here to do and what it is we're actually here to bring. And so it can be helpful to release our mother from that particular contract. That's not the only one. There's going to be many different contracts that you have with your mother, particularly if you have incarnated with your family over and over, particularly if you and your mom have incarnated with each other over and over again. That's a common thing, so there could be any number of contracts running between you guys that might not be beneficial anymore, or might be from another lifetime and might be something that is no longer helpful and supportive. And likewise with our fathers, it's the exact same thing goes. I do find that most people's mother line tends to be a bit heavier than their father line. I've met plenty of clients whose father line is heavier, but for the most part, most people have a more energetically complex relationship with their mother, because look, she brought us into this world in her body. So we tend to take more of that kind of karmic legacy, shall we say. And so it's important, if you're somebody who's especially if you have sort of challenging or difficult relationships with your parents, and even if you don't, because everybody's got shit with their parents. Like, if I meet a client who's like, everything was fine, my childhood was perfect, that's the biggest red flag for me, that there's something really serious going on here. That is not okay. If people tell you that their childhoods were perfect, that's, not in this day and age, I'm afraid. You're not going to have a traumaless childhood. It just isn't, it's not where we're at as humanity. And so either I find that person isn't kind of reflecting enough on what it is that they've experienced, or they're repressing a lot of things, or that, that kind of thing. So it's important for everybody to reflect on their relationships with their parents, because so much of who we are, how we walk within the world, what we are attuned to, the things that we're, even the things we're interested in, the kind of friends we draw in, the kind of romantic partners we draw in, you name it, it has something to do with our connection with our parents, because they brought us into this world. And so, often it's mother-father line stuff that we have to work through before we can get to the big stuff, before we can get to like all the really fun stuff as well in our field. If your mother and father line are really heavy, it's probably going to be quite hard for you to see the bigger picture. It's probably going to be quite hard for you to know what your mission is or what your purpose is. It's probably going to be quite hard for you to read and receive energetic codes which are coming from other places, if you've got that big weight of that mother-father line in sort of inheritance. So yeah, I would say that's often the place that we start with our healing journey is, okay, how did my childhood fuck me up? That's often the place that we start. And then once we've kind of worked through a lot of those layers, that's when things start to get really, really interesting. So yeah, I hope this is helpful for the person who asked this and maybe has keys and codes for other people. So yeah, thank you and take care.